You're listening to KOUG Radio. Listen live online at KOUGradio.org.
This broadcast contains explicit content. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kylie Sickles. Welcome to my second favorite album, where every album I talk about is my favorite because I can't choose. Or is my second favorite. Oh my gosh, I messed up my own intro. That's crushing. Anyways, today we are talking about Give Me the Future by Bastille. I love Bastille. Give Me the Future is their most recent studio album. It's very cool, very futuristic. A lot of Bastille's music really tackles a lot of, like if you listen to the words, they're very depressing. A lot of the themes in Bastille songs are a lot of very like sad subjects and stuff. The music is generally pretty upbeat and, very fun. So I love this album a lot. And yeah, let's jump into it. So first up, we are going to start with Distorted Light Beam. That was, I believe, the lead single off of this album. And it does a really fantastic job of tackling a lot of the themes of this album very early on, very quickly, very concisely, while still being kind of a banger, So a lot of the themes covered in this album are kind of fear of the rapidly approaching technological advances, things like AI and VR and stuff like that, and how that will affect our society and how that affects us as human beings. And it's really interesting. When they were promoting this album, they came up with these promotional videos for this fake, I think it was called the Innerverse. I'm not sure. I'll get back to y'all on that. But yeah, the Innerverse, where it was this virtual reality thing that is like this kind of dystopian thing where they talk a lot about people escaping inside of it and finding a lot of joy in this fake world and what that means for their real world and not wanting to come back to it. So they made all of these like fake advertisements for this fake company, and it was kind of cool. The symbol they made for it was kind of like this distorted infinity sign, and it was right before Facebook rebranded to Metaverse and did all their VR stuff and now has an infinity sign. So it's really topical, and I think they predicted that so amazingly well. It really is just phenomenal how they tackled that. But yes, so a lot of this album also covers VR, and it kind of wrestles with this idea of living in a virtual world where we can create whatever we want, display ourselves as whatever we want, kind of create this new image of ourselves, and fears of getting lost in that, losing touch with reality in the real world and, the things that make us human, and also some fear of artificial intelligence. And this album came in 2022, but the songs were in production and some of the singles were being released long before that. So yeah, very important. Comes at a very interesting time. They were making this music over Zoom, right? Back in 2020. So came at a very interesting and a very pivotal time. So we're gonna run into the second song on this album, Thelma and Louise, one of my favorite songs on this album. So let's get into it. That was Thelma and Louise. And you got a little snippet of No Bad Days there if you're listening live. If you're listening to the recording, just pretend like you heard a little bit there. Anyways, Thelma and Louise, amazing song. It is, of course, about the movie Thelma and Louise, which is I believe a 90s movie about general gist, I guess, spoiler warning, and also warning about like violence, sexual assault, and like death, I guess. But yeah, so Thelma and Louise was a 1991 film where Thelma and Louise are very good friends. One of them, their boyfriend, sexually assaults them, and then they kill him in like a kind of a self-defense move. And then they try to escape to Mexico together. But yeah, so this is totally based off that. I mean, the first line is skipping town down to Mexico, leave your job and your gaslight, man. It talks about I'm trying to find the exact line. We made headlines when you showed him what it means to say no, talking about consent there. And at first, it might be kind of hard to see how this fits in with the general theme of the album, but I think that it really fits in with the escapism aspect. I mean, Thelma and Louise are, on the run. They're literally trying to escape, something that they did, trying to escape the authorities, trying to escape to Mexico. So when we're talking about escapism, that's just a very literal sense of it, and that's a very large theme throughout this. There was a music video for Thelma and Louise because it was one of the singles, and it's kind of like a digital, like 3D animated. It's very cool. But it's kind of like someone like running through this world and like seemingly trying to escape their own thing. It doesn't seemingly connect to Thelma and Louise, the movie proper, but it kind of delves more into the idea of escapism and connecting it more to this album as a whole. This song was actually secretly teased in an Easter egg. In 2020, Bastille released a song called Survivin', which is my favorite song by them. We'll definitely get into that at some point on this podcast, but Survivin' has a gorgeous music video, and it's 2D animated. It's absolutely gorgeous, but at one point in the music video, you can see Thelma and Louise in their very iconic Thunderbird sitting at a stoplight. So I remember when that came out, Dan Smith, the lead singer on Bastille, kind of tweeting like, "Oh, shout out to you guys, who noticed that Thelma and Louise are sitting down there." And like, Dan Smith is a very known like film buff, so everyone just kind of went, "Oh yeah, he likes old film. He just wanted to sneak something fun in." And then Thelma and Louise came out when did this song come out? It came out in August of 2021, so well before Give Me the Future proper came out, but no idea that was an Easter egg until it was announced, and it's one of my favorite songs on this album. So let's jump into the next one. We're going to be listening to No Bad Days by Bastille. This is an explicit song, so strap in. This song, Dan Smith has spoken about this song and revealed what it was about. And this is another single off of Give Me the Future. Give Me the Future is very interesting because a large part of it are singles. Just because there were some delays. I'm not sure what it was, but there were a lot of delays in this album coming out. It was originally kind of expected to come out in 2021. We had Thelma and Louise coming out in August 2021. This song came out in October 2021, and then it got delayed until I think like February 2022. I'm not sure why, but I remember hearing that it was going to be delayed and being like, no. And it's also not a very long album. A lot of these songs are very short. The longest song on this album is the titular track, Give Me the Future at 3:40. But there is a deluxe version and a extended version called Give Me the Future, Dreams of the Past. I won't be able to dive into those today just due to time. But yeah. I don't remember where that train of thought started, but now we're here. So No Bad Days, this song was written about Dan Smith's aunt who passed away in 2019, and just seeing a loved one who you've always known to be very full of life and seeing how they react to a terminal illness and like getting that scary phone call that you're sick, and the idea of what do you do with your life when you know it's going to end soon. So a lot of these lyrics saying, well, fuck them all, run those stop signs, don't pay your bill, like kind of throwing it all out the window and just trying to live as much as you can, while also recognizing that being ill has serious effects on you, physically, mentally, where you have these, quote, bad days where you just feel worse, right? So the chorus going into there'll be no more bad days once you're gone. You'll be, hopefully, depending on what your opinions are on the afterlife and stuff, but like you'll find peace, So there'll be no more bad days once you're gone. And yeah, so just this really somber piece about death. No Bad Days did have a music video. It was directed by Dan Smith himself, and it also featured him. And in the music video, it showed him playing this character who was trying to like resurrect his wife into this like robot that looked like his wife, and just trying his best and really trying to bring her back and to bring her and put her into this robot just so that like he can be with her again. And that again kind of connects this back to the theme of this album of using technology to escape, you know, our humanity, I guess. You know, going through death is a very, you know, is the most natural part of life. You know, it's at the end for everyone. So going through and showing this person trying to defy that, trying to reverse it, using technology in this very, you know, it goes against human nature in a very interesting way. So that's No Bad Days. The next two songs we're going to play back to back because they play into each other so well. And the first one's only an interlude, so it's real short. So we're going to listen to Brave New World Interlude and Back to the Future. So that was Back to the Future. I adore that song so much. That song just makes me want to get up and dance every single time. So this song, I mean, as you can tell from its title, is filled with references to pop culture. So, of course, opens up with We're Living 1984, you know, talking about doublethink, stuff like that. We'll Dream of Huxley's Island Shore. That was a novel. There was a novel called Island, written in the 1960s by a guy named Aldous Huxley, which is kind of like this dystopian novel about this shipwrecked newspaperman. It's a dystopian novel, right? So fits quite well into the theme of this. And then also, you know, Blade Runner, references Wizard of Oz, and of course, Back to the Future. So again, discussing dreams. It talks a lot about in the chorus, in the middle of the night, I can dream away, you know, kind of create this ideal world that I want to see. And, you know, in the middle of the night, that's very much like a time when you dream, right? So going in, dreaming, kind of creating the world you want to see, even if, you know, this degree of freedom we have on creating our own world with things like, you know, virtual reality and the metaverse, etc., etc. If that means that we're kind of living in a dystopia, right? Again, kind of pulling away from that human aspect. I also want to talk about the amazing, like, I don't know, they're probably trumpets. I don't know musical instruments very well, but the horn section on this song. So Bastille has an amazing history of using a lot of like horns and like various like orchestral sounds and instruments in their song. They first started when they had, well, likely first started, right? When they did this orchestral kind of choir arrangement of their first album, Bad Blood, they were doing a concert, like a charity concert at like, I believe it was like an old church in Britain where they didn't want to come out, you know, singing Pompeii, Poppy and stuff. They wanted it to be this very beautiful orchestral kind of thing. And that bled into their creative process when they were creating their second album, Wild World, where it also has these really, really big orchestral pieces, especially on like stuff like orchestral maybe isn't the word, but a lot of horn sections, right? Especially at the beginning of Send Them Off. That's definitely a huge one, but collaborating in that, and then it eventually culminated into their reorchestrated project where they worked to recreate a lot of their songs into orchestral pieces with choirs, and they went around and they toured this, and it was called Reorchestrated, and it's gorgeous. There's a whole documentary about it that I adore, so check that out. I think it's on Amazon Prime, so it's good stuff. Anyways, next up we're gonna run into Plug In, which is an explicit song, so here we go. Plug In by Bastille. So that song is pretty loaded, so let's get into it. I first want to cover the fact that it kind of bleeds into um uh the kind of idea that I was just discussing about their use of orchestra. And yeah, so this song starts off with "Tell me we'll be all right, say that we'll be fine," and that's in a very, very like distorted voice, right? But then it ends in this very big orchestral, just a little bit of tenderness, a little bit of tenderness, say that we'll be all right, and his voice isn't distorted, and it's all orchestral music. And I think it's this beautiful dichotomy between like kind of the, orchestras kind of feel very human, even though, of course they're playing instruments and stuff. It's all human emotion, humans playing it. It has a lot of love and care into it. And this song is definitely I'd say the most scathing song of their opinions on where we're heading with technology currently, saying, AI is the messiah, and it takes on this very like satirical look at it of like talking about like, oh, well, we'll just airbrush my jaw, we will learn nothing from history's mistakes, we will drink in driverless cars, we're gonna, burn the country down with climate change, we're gonna ruin the ice caps, etc., etc., and all while asking, are we having fun yet? Like, is this the world we want? Like, really? So, and then the chorus is this more tender, literally tender, they say just a little bit of tenderness, right? So this tender look of, just give me that humanity back. Tell me we're gonna be okay, even if it's a lie. I don't care. Just give me that little bit of piece of my humanity back, right? And then the song also talks about like this idea that, oh, well, we can just have fun, kind of do whatever we want, be irresponsible. We'll just find a planet B. That's one of the lyrics in verse 2 is find planet B. That's all we'll need, and just looking at this and not being responsible and just delaying it for the future and kind of doing whatever we want while we ruin our planet. And there's also a little lyric that I want to jump into of I'm sleeping with a robot next to me. That kind of jumps into what I was saying earlier about humanity and, replacing this part of humanity with technology. Sleeping next to someone is something that can be very intimate, even if it, has nothing to do with like intercourse or anything like that. Like sleeping with someone literally is very intimate, very, very human, right? So to be sleeping with a robot next to you is replacing that humanity with technology and, this cold, futuristic idea of like, yeah, it might be, physically ideal, etc., but it's not a human, right? It doesn't have that human connection. So, and then I think it's gorgeous how it goes into that outro that just feels so human and pure and beautiful. And it's a really like masterfully crafted song. So the next two songs I'm once again going to play back to back just because I think they bleed into each other really well. And so that'll be Promises featuring Riz Ahmed and Shut Off the Lights. So let's get into it. Promises and Shut Off the Lights. So Promises, I won't get into too much because it's such a gorgeous piece of spoken word poetry that I feel like going into it too much might ruin the magic a little. It is a very gorgeous, very, very important part of this album where it kind of brings us out of talking about Plug In, which is this very like nihilistic, oh my gosh, we're ruining everything, we're irresponsible, and then we see at the end of Plug In this this humanity come back into the song, and then we jump straight into this, which is just human. Like, it is so gorgeous and talking about like you know, the world is crazy and wild, but one of the lines is asleep stomach to stomach is all I need, to be honest. And, you know, when I talked last time about that line about sleeping with a robot next to you, this directly feels like it relates to that of feeling another human being so close to you. And like for some reason, like I don't know what it is, but like skin to skin contact is so important even when it's not necessarily in a sexual context of talking about and I mean like when people have babies and stuff, that skin to skin contact initially is so important for the development of the baby, and there's just something about that of feeling another human being directly up next to you that makes you feel so safe and secure, and bringing that humanity back to this album and talking about this relationship that this character is experiencing of you were just my best lay and I never planned to hold hands. This kind of, when we talk about AI and technology, everything's very calculated. Everything's very like there's a program for it. It's not doing some random thing. Randomness is the hardest thing to create in a computer program. But when you're human, when you're experiencing this human, life, things just fall into place and happen that never could have been predicted, never could have been written out in an algorithm, So him meeting this person that he thought was just like, maybe a one night stand or something, and then turning into something where they're slow dancing and loving each other and just connecting on this very intense and human level. So that's what I'll say about that very, very gorgeous piece of spoken word poetry. And then we jump straight into Shut Off the Lights, which is taking those same kind of ideas but making it a pop banger. I also love the song. This is another single off of this album. I believe the last single. This one came out in January of 2022. So this one, the music video is them like jumping around and like having fun in an office building, where they're pretending to be like workers in the office, and then they all just go and have fun and start dancing. And very similar to what I was talking about with the last two songs, like this song has a lot of sexual connotations, right? Talking a lot about like, moving your body, etc. Like, you are my gravity, shut off the lights, we don't need them, stuff like that. But when we go deeper and look at this from a different perspective, I think that it could also mean very literally like sitting there and just dancing with someone that you love, which is again a very human thing of just like moving your body together and being excited and dancing to music, which is why I think it's so important that this song is such a banger. It makes you want to dance, and that's what the song is about. And when it's played live, I oh my gosh, I didn't talk about the first time I saw Bastille live. I'll have to talk about that at the end of this. But when this song is live, right before we go into it, Dan Smith says to the audience, hey guys, so if you don't know this song, it's going to say, shut off the lights, we don't need them to dance. And behind me on the screen, that's going to appear. And when that happens, I want you all to yell it back at me. So that part of the chorus where everyone's singing, shut off the lights, we don't need them to dance, right? The entire crowd is shouting that live, and it's gorgeous. It's so fun. And it's just super fun. But I do love this song a lot. I find it very relatable. I am someone who's very like physically affectionate. When I'm sad or upset with something, like genuinely being hugged and held by someone else like intensely makes me feel better. Like that is something that is so important to me in my life. So talking about this first verse, I'm lost in my head again, don't want to do this all again, darkness my only friend, like clearly being anxious, maybe a little depressed, talking about that. And then this other person comes in and you pull me back down to earth, so they're connecting on a very human level and, just making each other feel better and, cuddling, holding each other, dancing, just experiencing life together, and throwing away fears of the future and just living directly in the moment, which I think is gorgeous. And yeah, so real quick, I'll jump into my story of how I saw Bastille for the first time. So I got into Bastille in 2020, which was like right after they released Doom Days, which was their third studio album. So I missed that tour and I was so upset. And then finally this album came out 2022 and I was like, yes, I'm there 100%. And I got tickets. I got good tickets. I spent like $200, something like that, on these tickets. I was so excited. And then I got COVID. Like, I was so devastated, but obviously I couldn't go out, you know, even though I was feeling better at that point. I was like, it would be so selfish for me to go out and risk other people's health. So I ended up selling them at a half price to my good friend Evan Renfro, and he went and he enjoyed it immensely. And he was like, yeah, Dan Smith was like right there, like, you know, I could have like reached out. And I was like so crushed. But Bastille ended up touring and opening for Duran Duran this last summer of 2023. And I think it was on June 1st, I think, was when I saw them in Portland at the Moda Center. And nothing could have held me back. So, because Duran Duran generally has an, I don't want to say older, that's not very nice, older than me audience, right? I'm young. I'm you know, I'm like 22. How old am I? I'm 21. But Duran Duran generally, you know, folks are usually in their 30s, 40s or beyond, just because they were popular mainly in the 80s, you know. So this opener being Bastille, which Bastille only has two like really mainstream songs with Pompeii. Let's Go, I Love Pompeii, which came out in 2013, I believe. And then they have Happier with Marshmello. Those both reached a lot of mainstream success. But as far as their other songs, they're not necessarily super widely known. So when it came down to it, I was up in like the nosebleeds, up in the 300 section, but I was wearing like 5-inch platform heels, so I'm like 5'10", and I have bright hot pink hair I had like crimped it so it was big and frizzy. So I was this like 5'10", you know, hot pink hair jumping up and down up in the 300 level. And at one point during the show, and everyone else around me was sitting down. That's why I clarified about the general age group that was seeing Duran Duran, right? You know, anyone who was up and wanting to party generally bought lower tickets. You know, people in the 300 level generally were pretty chill. So I'm up there. I'm the only one standing up. I'm, you know, jumping around and stuff. And at one point, Dan Smith pointed in my general direction and said, "Hello, love." And I mean, it was like towards me, right? Like there's no other way. So Dan Smith said hi to me, heart emoji. So yeah, seeing this song live was amazing. And yeah, that's my story for that. So we're next gonna jump into Stay Awake by Bastille. So let's get into it. We're back in the trenches with this song. The last couple songs I was like, yeah, we're like returning to humanity and stuff. But this song, we're back down there. This one is, I mean, it's talking more about escapism and going into this virtual world that we can control and create, and, you know, create this ideal world that isn't real, you know. Stop the world I want to get off. I don't want to deal with the pain and the trauma that comes with being alive. And cyber love in an anxious age, talking about, you know, I need to get me laid. They're still searching for these, you know, very like human, animalistic, feels kind of like a gross way to put it, but that's how I'm gonna put it. Like urges and stuff, and wanting to feel connection with another human being, but they're looking for it in this space that is very technological, very fake, very fabricated, you know. Had a taste of euphoria, Who Could Blame Me for Wanting More, talking about like maybe, getting addicted to being able to control everything around you and just kind of hide and escape the real world in this. Talking about now as freaks and geeks can rule, feeling like you have power over this world that you're in, when in the real world you might feel very powerless. So, why would you stay awake? Why would you stay in the real world when you can, live in one that's a lot less painful? And, it also talks about total recall, all the dumb regrets. If you do something bad, just erase it. It's fine. Breaking hearts in a brand new way, same old humans making new mistakes. So we're still the same people, but this technology allows us to reach out and connect with people in brand new, meaningful ways. But that also comes with its own added pain of being able to hurt so many more people, whether that's intentional or not. And yeah, very much just a song about like, well, if we can create this ideal world, we're gonna become addicted to it. So next up, we're gonna jump into the titular track, Give Me the Future. So let's get into it. As far as this song goes, I mean, honestly, a lot of the themes in this song are very similar to Stay Awake, of just saying, like, I've tasted endless love that takes control. I wanted more, getting kind of addicted to this perfect, ideal, virtual world, happy in my second life, headset on. I could be anything. Let me be your Midas king, stuff like that. Like, just wanting the freedom to be able to build yourself in this ideal world. So, as the titular track, I think that it also encapsulates this album very well. It has those orchestral pieces that we've talked about before, and it's a very like almost like pleading song, if that makes sense, of just like, why would I do this? Why would I do this? This is what I want. This is what, would make me happy. And I do really love the lines, now nothing is certain and the song isn't done. The new melodies rise up with the sun. So I think that's really important when we're talking about new advancements in technology and stuff. Like, we don't really know what we're doing. We don't know how anything is going to progress, and we're still kind of building the plane as it's flying, and new things rise up every day, and we just take each of them in with stride. So I don't have too much to say about the song. I really do love it. It's grown on me a lot. When it first came out, I was like, yeah, it's fine. But now it's one of my favorite songs on the album. I do love it quite a bit. But next up, we're going to get into Club 57. Another banger on this album. I love the song so much. So this song, Dan Smith has written that this is absolutely a love letter to Keith Haring and the 80s New York art party scene. So if you're not familiar with the name Keith Haring, you are most certainly familiar with his art. He's very famous for these like very, how do I even describe it? They're like these human depictions that are very rounded, almost simplistic, with very bold lines, usually dancing or having fun. If you were to see a Keith Haring piece, you would be like, oh, yeah, I've seen that before. Very famous, very, very influential artist. And so kind of the way that this fits into this album as a whole is Dan Smith kind of wrote that if there was a place that he could escape to or go to, it would be this sort of art party scene, just because he's so interested and intrigued by it and the history of it. So that's kind of how that fits in. And also in the chorus talking about, is it love or am I just craving attention or satisfaction? That is also one of the themes we've talked about of, genuine human connection, whether we're building something superficial, like kind of the stuff we've talked about with like sleeping with robots and stuff, or are we building something genuine between humans that's very real and concrete, So this is just a very fun song, and Club 57 is a club that was frequented by Keith Haring. But yeah, just a very, very fun song about 80s New York art. next up, we're gonna go into the last two songs of this album. We're gonna play them back to back. Again, they're one of the ones that bleed into each other very well, and the first is another interlude. So let's jump into Total Dissociation Interlude and Future Holds featuring Bim. Alrighty, this song, Future Holds specifically, was immediately one of my favorite songs on this album. When I first listened to the whole thing once through, it was immediately my favorite. I adore this song. Total Dissociation is also great. I don't have much to say about that. I mean, it's kind of straightforward. It was kind of, yeah. So we're gonna talk about Future Holds featuring Bim. I love Bim. Bim, I talked earlier about how Bastille, their history of incorporating orchestral and like choral sounds to their music started with this charity concert. It was at a place called Union Chapel in Britain, and Bim was one of the people on the choir who they were working with. I mean, I think she was like one of the lead people. That could be wrong, but very, very important person. And so she's just been working with them now for years, and she's so amazing and iconic, and she'll sometimes come with them on tour and perform with them, and she just has this gorgeous, gorgeous full voice. And yeah, Dan Smith describes the song as hoping to achieve future gospel, and I just think it's so gorgeous. And so Bastille also has this really amazing talent of ending these really sad and depressing albums, like lyrically, with very hopeful and loving songs, namely in this album and in Doom Days, which are their two albums that have the strongest themes. The first two albums, Bad Blood and Wild World, kind of felt more like collections of songs that they had created, but Doom Days and Give Me the Future both tell a story in their album, and it's very cohesive as a unit, and both of them end on this very hopeful note. In Doom Days, it ends with a song called Joy. Doom Days, we'll get into it at some point on this podcast, but Doom Days kind of explores this night of going out and also escapism. They love talking about that, and, sadness and stuff like that, but then ends in this culmination of waking up the next morning and feeling joy when you're connecting with someone. But this song, which ends this depressing album, kind of says a big fuck you to the entire rest of the album and the fears and the anxiety of it, of like, we will get to the future when we get there. Right now, I'm here with you, and talking about, again, connecting with someone else on this very intense level, where kind of like what we talked about with Shut Off the Lights, where they take away a lot of your anxieties, you make each other feel better, etc., etc. And also talking about a lot of the more technological songs on this album talk a lot about creating this ideal world where you can erase your mistakes and stuff. And this song talks about, the shit we never did will haunt us. Like, we cannot, no rewinding. Like, we live how we live, and we grow from it, and we build from it, and we just continue living. Talking about, don't blink, I'll miss it all. I don't want to wake up at the ending. I don't want to just wake up at the good part. I want to live through it all. Yeah, so just going through life and finding the parts that are intensely important, intensely crucial to your life, that continue, building you up and continue giving you hope. And a lot of times that's another person. So who knows what the future holds, so long as I've got you. So I think that's a very, very sweet and a gorgeous song. I love it. I love choir aspects in songs. They did one of their songs on their first album is called Icarus, and they did a version at, I think it was like King's Cross College or something like that, where it was done with a full choir. It is a religious experience. It's so gorgeous. So I love choral aspects in songs. So I love this song. But yeah, that was the base album for Give Me the Future. Again, there are two albums that build off of it. And yeah, but we will not be getting into that due to time. Now, I do have one more song to play for you folks. This has no relation to Bastille, but today is a very special day. It is my 2-year anniversary with the absolute love of my life, Michael. And when we were first talking and we first started dating, we weirdly bonded over this song because it's at a very interesting crossroads between our kind of, pretty different music tastes, and it's very fun. And I remember listening to it with him very early on, and we thought it'd be very funny to be like, this is our song. It's not a romantic song at all, but it's a very fun song. It's also kind of a long song, so I'm gonna get into it. But yeah, I love you. Happy anniversary, darling. Here is Devil Trigger by Ali Edwards and Casey Edwards.